And Chris, why don't we start with you? If you could choose a business for a case study on the optimum use of social media, which one would it be and why?
I don't have the greatest example in the small business space, so I'll flip over to the startup space, which I see a bit different than the small business space, and say I'm involved with Startup Weekend, an event that happens a couple of times a year in Toronto, and one of our past winners, a company called Visualize Me, did some amazing stuff with social media in the weekend. And first off, as far as how they did it, it was all about hustling and just pounding the pavement to get it done. So there's no real strategy there other than just hustle and work your butt off to get there. But they managed to leverage the power of the internet, not just social media, but using all those different channels to reach all sorts of potential customers for this business that they were defining over a weekend, and had 10,000 plus registrations for their launch rocket site within a few hours, and within a couple of weeks after the event had 150,000 plus registrations. They actually broke the record for registrations on Launch Rocket, a startup in its own right. So they did all this stuff like finding the right blogs to get into and actually engage with and comment to reach who they thought their actual audience should be, validating their idea with an online customer base, tweeting, using Facebook pages. So they did all of that stuff extremely effectively. And then just before, though, another example is not in the small business stage. It's actually Rogers, and unfortunately, the way I came about it was not a positive way. I was having a terrible customer service experience, and I was very frustrated. And I started tweeting about that. Don't go and look at my Twitter stream because you'll see some foul language in there. And but they did an effective job of reaching out and kind of accepting that I had a problem and helping me navigate through that. And seeing a big brand do that is it makes me feel a little bit better about that whole negative experience. So those would be two case studies I would look at.
Okay, and Julie.
I think a good example for a small to medium business is a company out of Waterloo called Complete Innovations that I've worked with in the past. They've done a really great job of identifying who their key consumers are and where they want to spend time. They've also done a great job of using their owned media, so their own customer databases, their own communication with their customers to drive them to also be participating with them on the platforms that they're on, realizing that that's another touch point for them. So they've been really smart about earned and incremental media, if you will, and understanding how to aggregate that opt-in audience, all being a small business. So, they've really leveraged the tools to the maximum, understand what they're doing and where they're doing it. So I think they've done a great job. Some might disagree with me, but I think who might surprise us all is actually Air Canada from a large business. They have received, quite an interesting launch into the social world. If you've ever visited them on Facebook or on Twitter, they get the good and the bad, but they've never went away. They've taken that in some of their steps to be proactive. They've actually got a person who specifically is customer service oriented who now responds to people, and they're taking responsibility, if you will. So it would be easy for a brand like that to run away and say, this is too much for us to handle, where they're continuing and really re-strategizing to be, at the top of their game and not disappearing from the social space, recognizing the value in it. So I think that could end up being a great case study.
That must be one very busy person. Liz.
Actually, I think one of the best examples is a web hosting company out of Canada, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their name. And I'll look it up and tweet it. And the reason I think they're a fabulous example is because every blog post on their blog is about a customer. And it's so hard to differentiate yourself if you're a small web hosting company, because what do? You just host other people's websites. I mean, how far can you differentiate yourself? But they write these long, involved blog posts about the guy who builds sculptures out of found metal and how he runs his business and what his business is about. And at the end, you can't help but think, oh, my God, they care so much about their customers, that they know their customers deeply on this level, that I want them to care about me. And it's amazing to just read blog post after blog post that they don't just know about your website, they know everything about your business. And that is an incredible use of social media as far as winning people over and don't tell me, show me. far better than testimonial, a far stronger sense of social proof. As far as large corporation model, I recently sat in a room where David Armano interviewed Richard Edelman, as in Edelman Global, and they were talking about the new Edelman Trust Barometer findings, and the American car companies have moved from last place to second place in the most trusted industry in the U.S. And I truly believe that is a function of their social media efforts and the way that, Chevy Volt has put power stations all through South by Southwest and given people rides all over the place. And Ford has sponsored Blog World Expo and supported people with cars there, and a variety of other ways that, Ford sponsored She Connects. So they're learning to listen to their customers and interact with their customers in ways that make sense for their customers. In other words, they're starting to be mission critical to their customers' mission. I would like to point out one thing, that being good at social media doesn't make you successful. The companies that are really successful, for example, Zappos, are really good at service and use social media to do that. The companies that are good at social media and not good at service are not being successful.